This matchup is pretty simple on the surface. A giant construct made of pure willpower versus an enormous monster that's nearly indestructible. But who would win in this matchup? Let's find out. Coming in at just under 274 feet tall and weighing roughly 600 tons, Green Lantern's giant construct is an absolute unit made from pure willpower and imagination. This construct can grow to be as large as a small mountain, capable of leveling cities with ease. And while it doesn't have any offensive capabilities aside from its sheer size, its very existence is enough to devastate an opponent. The giant construct is basically the physical manifestation of all of humanity's hopes and dreams, representing everything good in the world. As such, even the most powerful villains lose all hope when faced with this construct, giving the Green Lantern constructs an extra edge in battle. Godzilla is no stranger to fighting massive foes, but the sheer willpower and overwhelming positivity of the giant construct is something he may not have prepared for. So, how does Godzilla fare against this foe? Let's find out. Godzilla stands at an impressive 390 feet tall and weighs around 88,000 tons. That's about 14 times larger than the giant construct. This guy has fought against and even survived attacks from the likes of King Biollante and the Oxygen Destroyer, as well as various incarnations of itself from across the multiverse. Godzilla's skin is incredibly tough, able to withstand the full force of a nuclear blast, and temperatures reaching up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There are very few things that can harm Godzilla, and even fewer things that can take him down for good. So can this construct be the first? Let's find out. Godzilla will always start off with his signature atomic breath, an incredibly powerful energy beam that shoots out of his mouth. The atomic breath is capable of leveling entire cities and destroying multiple large kagus in one fell swoop. However, the beam moves at a relatively slow speed, only moving at about 3 times the speed of sound. So the agile giant construct should be able to dodge the attack without much difficulty. Dodging the atomic breath is really the easiest part of this fight for the construct. All the construct needs to do is stay just out of Godzilla's range and keep its distance until Godzilla gets bored and gives up the attack. It is likely that Godzilla won't just stand there and shoot his atomic breath over and over again, especially since the construct is clearly not taking any damage from it. Instead, Godzilla will eventually charge forward and try to smash the construct into pieces. But this is where the construct has an advantage over Godzilla. See, the construct isn't just strong because it's big. It's actually stronger than some of the most powerful Green Lanterns we've ever seen. In fact, it was actually capable of fighting against, and holding its own against, a fully powered Darkseid. Considering Darkseid is often considered to be one of the strongest characters in the DC universe, if not the strongest, this means that the construct should be more than strong enough to hold its own against Godzilla's attacks. And thanks to its size, the construct should be able to tank most of Godzilla's attacks. The only real danger that Godzilla poses to the construct is his atomic breath. If the construct stays just outside of Godzilla's range, then it should be fine. Otherwise, it should be able to hold its own against Godzilla. It's hard to say whether or not the construct could actually win the fight. After all, it has no offensive capabilities whatsoever, but it also doesn't need to win the fight. The construct's purpose is simply to protect and defend, not to go on the offensive. So as long as it can survive Godzilla's attacks for long enough, then it's fulfilled its purpose. However, it's important to note that the longer the construct stays in the fight, the more likely it is to eventually get hit by one of Godzilla's attacks. Eventually, the construct is going to get tired, and eventually it is going to get hit by one of Godzilla's attacks. It's just a matter of time before that happens. The construct wouldn't have any luck trying to reason with Godzilla. After all, this is a giant monster that eats people for breakfast. He doesn't care what you have to say, and he's not going to listen to you. The construct would have to rely on its strength and durability to try to wear Godzilla down, which is already a tall order. But the construct doesn't have any offensive abilities. All it can do is be big and strong. It is like trying to beat someone in an arm wrestling contest when you don't even know how to arm wrestle. So let us assume that the construct is able to dodge Godzilla's atomic breath, and maybe even land a few punches of its own. How would Godzilla fare against the construct's raw power? Well, it depends on which version of Godzilla we're talking about here. Some versions of Godzilla are more powerful than others. For example, the Godzilla from the Heisei era is much stronger than the Godzilla from the Showa era, so we'll have to take that into account. But assuming we're talking about the Godzilla from the most recent trilogy, then I think we can safely say that Godzilla would be able to tank most of the construct. S attacks even if the construct is significantly stronger than the average Green Lantern. The reason for this is because of Godzilla's atomic breath. See, the construct is only as strong as its willpower, and Godzilla's atomic breath is literally an attack on that willpower. The atomic breath is a concentrated beam of nuclear energy, and nuclear energy is the very thing that powers the construct. By attacking the construct with atomic breath, Godzilla is essentially draining away its power source. So even if the construct is stronger than Godzilla in terms of raw power, that power is being steadily depleted by Godzilla's atomic breath. Of course, the construct could try to get away from Godzilla and stop letting him hit it with atomic breath. But the problem is that Godzilla is fast enough to catch up to the construct and prevent it from getting away. In fact, Godzilla is so fast that he could probably catch the construct off guard and land a devastating blow before the construct even realizes what is happening. I think this fight would really come down to how well the construct could dodge Godzilla's initial attacks. If it could dodge the first atomic breath, then it might be able to hold its own against Godzilla. But if it got hit by that first atomic breath, then I think it's game over from there. Godzilla's atomic breath is just too powerful for the construct to overcome. What do you think? Who would win in this matchup? Let me know your thoughts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are many different versions of Godzilla, each with their own unique set of abilities and power levels. So the outcome of this fight could change depending on which version of Godzilla we're talking about. For example, the Godzilla from the Monsterverse is much more powerful than the Godzilla from the Showa era, so the construct would have a much harder time against the Monsterverse Godzilla. In addition to that, Godzilla's atomic breath can vary in power as well. In some incarnations of Godzilla, his atomic breath is a much more powerful weapon that can one-shot just about anything in its path. In other incarnations, Godzilla's atomic breath is more of a last resort type attack that he uses when he is weakened or cornered. So the power level of Godzilla's atomic breath would also have to be taken into account when determining the outcome of this fight. Overall, I think it is safe to say that the construct would have a tough time against any version of Godzilla. Godzilla is just too powerful and too experienced to be taken lightly. The construct might be able to hold its own against Godzilla for a while, but I think it would eventually get overwhelmed and destroyed. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more content.